Welcome back, Bolt fam, to another episode of Chargers Powder Hour. Colin Appel and Miles Raruka here. We are your co-host, and it's official. The draft class for the 2023 or the 2023 draft class for the Los Angeles Chargers is here. We know who's a Bolt, and the official results are in. So this is the this is the official draft reaction episode. My man, how we doing? How are we feeling after draft weekend?
Dude, I can't believe it's over, man. No more mock drafts, no more speculations, man. We know who we got on our team going forward. I'm happy, man. It was an awesome time watching Thursday, Friday, Saturday. We'll get way more into it throughout this episode. I'm happy, man. I'm doing great. You were at the draft. If you want to touch a little bit on what you did at the draft, how it went,
Yes, sir.
things along that nature, please do.
Dude, the draft was awesome. We had a great time. I went with a few buddies, one Chargers fan and a Bears fan. And dude, it was so much fun. Like it was just a weekend full of NFL atmosphere. It felt like you were at a game at times, just with all the fans and smelling like football smells and ice cold beers walking
What does
around.
what does football smell like?
Some tailgating going on, so a little bit of like charcoal in the air.
Mhm.
Some yeah, I would mainly just say like that charcoal smell in the air when you're walking through like the
Oof.
tailgates on Sunday.
Yeah, dude.
That was amazing to to experience again. And it made me really miss football season and really, wanted to be here. But no, man, it was a great weekend. I could probably talk about it for an hour just alone, so I won't take up the entire hour talking about it. But yeah, man, we had a great time. We had great seats on Friday. Thursday was absolutely just insanely packed. I think they had like over 200,000 people at Union Station. So Thursday was kind of a shit show, but Friday was a lot of fun. We had plenty of space to sprawl out and you know didn't have to fight people just to get back to your spot where you were standing. So it was a good time, man, and I was pretty impressed with how the weekend went for the Chargers specifically, which we're about to jump into here as a whole. But yeah, I guess what was your favorite moment of the draft just from watching on TV?
Dude, I think honestly one of my favorite moments. I'm just gonna go non-Chargers related just for the sake of conversation, but I don't know if you got to check out that video of Deuce Vaughn's dad calling him on the phone. So Deuce Vaughn is
No.
the running back from Kansas State, and his dad is a scout for the Cowboys. So
Yeah.
he was able to like call him on his phone and say, "Hey, how would it feel to come to work with me next week?" Something along those lines, and just an awesome moment, man. It was really cool. I like Deuce Vaughn in college a lot. That was definitely one of my favorite moments of the weekend. But dude, on the Chargers wise, man, we got a lot to get into, man. Do you have a favorite moment of the draft, non Chargers, that you want to touch on real quick?
I mean, non-Chargers, I don't. I mean, actually, I will say just round one was a lot of fun seeing kind of that mess of picks from like 12 to 19 was pretty fun for me just because, Chargers picking at 21 and to see, some of these guys continue to drop and fall. There were a couple guys there on the board at 21 that the Chargers could have gone with, and we'll kind of get into that with round one. But um, I would say honestly, just my favorite moment being round one and seeing, you know, I mean, every year I love seeing who goes in that top 15. It's my favorite part of the draft, that first round top 15 because it's just that's where all the elite talent is, and it's just always fun to see like who drops and who's there, who surprises you in that sense. So I think the biggest surprise for me in round one was definitely the Detroit Lions and their selections that they made. Jameer Gibbs at number 12, I believe, and Jack Campbell, a linebacker out of Iowa, later on in the first round. I can't remember exactly what pick they took him with, but it's always stuff like that for me. It's just nothing crazy, but Um, it happens every year, and just it shocks me like what teams are holding, like what cards they're holding close to their vest that we don't ever really find out about until draft night.
Every single year, we do our mock drafts and we think we know what the hell we're talking about. And then draft night rolls around and everything just
Exactly.
goes right out the window. I mean, it was a super fun draft overall. I mean, there was a lot of picks like, dude, Darnell Washington went what round 3, round 4.
Yep.
That's just insane. Just a lot of guys that fell quite a bit. And there was a lot of guys that went higher than probably should have. But overall, man, should we get into what our Bolts did this
Yeah.
weekend?
Let's get into it, man. It was a crazy weekend, but I think, one of the highlights of the weekend, no doubt, was what the Chargers did in round one. And we're gonna pull up our round one reaction here. Um, once I get this situated. Boom. There we go. So we're doing a round one reaction, and Quentin Johnson is the pick at number 21. What is your instant reaction? What was your live reaction as his name was called on TV, and just what were the first thoughts that kind of came into your head?
A lot of things coming into my head. We saw some great defensive ends drop. I know Nolan Smith, the guy you're a huge fan of, was there available at 21. So that was kind of the first thing that came into mind is, man, what position do I think we're going to attack here? And to me, I honestly initially was kind of surprised that they went receiver. I always wanted them to go receiver, but I just didn't think that they would do it. And then once I heard the name Quentin Johnston, I felt like such an idiot. How did we not talk about him at all? He is literally a prototypical Telesco Chargers receiver with his height, with his length. Um, he's literally another Mike Williams, just with some yards after catch ability. But so my first reaction was kind of surprised we went receiver, and then like I was cool with it. Quinton Johnston, when they were pretty relevant back in the college football playoff, he was like supposed to be the number one receiver off the board. He was like the number one most NFL ready, he was the most polished receiver. And then he tested and he didn't test that great, which pretty much was just his 40 time. That was really the main concern. And,
Yep.
I really have grown to love the pick. It probably wasn't the receiver I wanted. Me, I was a big Zay Flowers fan and he was available, ended up going the pick right after. So at first I was surprised, but it doesn't surprise me whatsoever now looking back at it. It's literally exactly the kind of dude that the Chargers would go after.
Yeah, man. And look, I don't think you're I think you are in the majority of people that were a little surprised to see his name called at 21, myself included. And to be honest with you, man, I don't think, like, don't feel bad about not thinking about him earlier, because I don't think a lot of people mocked, or had mocked him going as late as 21 into the Chargers as well. So it definitely was a little bit of a surprise on Thursday night. But look, overall, I like the pick. I think anytime you can add depth to that receiving room, it's a good thing. We saw last year at times just how thin we were at that position, especially, all it takes is a couple of injuries, and it's definitely, kind of put on notice of like, oh my gosh, we're thin at this position. So yeah, I like the pick. I was surprised. My initial reaction was, wow, yeah, how did I not think of him as well? But then after kind of spending some time thinking about it, and going back and looking at mock drafts from the last month or so, not a lot of people saw this happening. So definitely more of a surprise. And I think it's a safe pick for round one. Again, I was a little surprised they went receiver. That was my biggest thing leading up to the draft was, will they really go receiver in round one? Just because, I thought someone like Quentin Johnson would already be off the board, and you would be looking more at, maybe someone like Jordan Addison, Zay Flowers, which both those guys did end up going immediately after Quentin Johnson was taken. I believe Jackson Smith and the Jigba and the who did he go to again? Was it the Seahawks?
Seahawks. Seahawks. Yep.
The Seahawks kind of started a wide receiver purge there at the end of round one. I think it was four straight receiving or wide receiver picks after the Seahawks took Jackson Smith and Jigba. So um, I think it's the best receiver in the draft. I do. Um, so with that, I mean, I'm prepared to give it a pretty solid grade. What would your round one grade be?
I would probably go an A minus. I think that they really prioritize, getting Herbert weapons, especially coming into this draft. And we saw another receiver go later on in this draft who can be beneficial towards us as well. So, I just think you got to keep your young quarterbacks healthy, especially going into his brand new contract. I really like the pick. I think he's going to be a great receiver for a long time to come, and I really like it. There maybe Zay Flowers would have been one other guy that I probably would have liked more, but really now looking back on it, there's only a very few handful of guys I really would have preferred. So I give it an A minus.
A minus. All right, I like that. I like that grade. I myself, I'm grading it on the higher side, but not as high as you are. So I'm gonna go with a solid B plus. I think, and look, no one knows until we see this draft class, you know, play out for at least a year, if not 2 years, just to kind of look back and judge, where other picks were taking around us in round one. But I do feel really good about it. I still think he's the best receiver in round one that was available. So for him to fall at 21, I think that is good value. A little concerned with how he tested after the combine, particularly at his pro day. But then again, some guys just aren't great testers when it comes to, showing off their speed if it's not in a real game situation. And I know, you know, it's everyone's different, but I feel like he's a guy that when someone's chasing him or when he has to, when he has that getaway speed, I think he has it. I know he only ran like 4.45, I believe, at the combine, which for his size is pretty fast. Like that's pretty quick. And I know he ran like 4.51 at his pro day. So, stuff like that makes you a little concerned. But overall, I think you just, you know, see what you have on tape, and he passes the eye test for me. So I'm gonna go a solid B plus.
Yeah, I think that they really prioritize really getting somebody that can stretch the field and somebody that can get us some yards after catch. We have a guy that can stretch the field in Jalen Guyton, but would I trust him in a yak situation? Not necessarily. Quentin Johnson led the FBS in yards after catch
Yep.
last season in his breakout season. And I mean, even just watching him like in the playoff game versus Michigan, he just looks like a very stellar athlete out on the field. So I think that they did a great job with this pick. They went after the one area that it seems like our whole fan base has been bitching at him for forever, and that's we need a yards after catch guy. We have the deep threat in Mike Williams, and we have the route runner in Keenan Allen, but we need that after the catch guy that you can throw down the middle. He reminds me so much of Malcolm Floyd, dude. I'm so excited.
Yes. Yeah. I know. I love the picture that you tweeted out on Thursday night of I see the vision, and it was a side by side of throwback Malcolm Floyd, Antonio Gates, and Vincent Jackson. And now the big three receiving trio for the Chargers of Quentin Johnson, Mike Williams, and Keenan Allen. So I can see kind of, yes, the vision that the Chargers have for this offense, and I like it. It does give me shades of back in the day with those three receiving guys. So let's move on to round two here. We have our round two reaction. I was actually in attendance for round two. I was there round one, but I wasn't able to get down close to the stage. So round two, I was right there when Nick Hardwick came out and made the pick for the Bolts. It was awesome to see Nick Hardwick out there. I learned earlier in the day that he was going to be the one making the pick for the Chargers, and I was like, heck yeah, man! that's a solid choice to have out there. So, um, round two, Chargers officially select Tui Pelotu, edge from USC. So they go hometown kid here. Not hometown necessarily, but homegrown as far as playing his college ball here, and much needed depth on the edge for the Chargers. Tui is someone that'll be able to come in year one and not start, but have a very significant role on this defense and be able to learn from guys like Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa, and even guys like Chris Rumpf, who have a couple of seasons now under their belt. So what was your initial reaction with Tui Pelotu? I know mine was more mixed just because I did not know a whole lot about him, but it didn't take long for me to do a little bit of research there and really start to like this pick.
Yeah, same here, honestly. I recognized the name when they said it, but it wasn't anyone that I had checked out or really had in mind, honestly. But looking back on it, it's another pick that just makes perfect sense. You know, we've seen them go edge in the second round, especially guys at a USC with Uchenna Nwosu, um, 4 or 5 years ago. So, the pick makes a lot of sense to me. I think that they like keeping those guys around LA that are there in LA. I think that there's a sense of pride in kind of having those homegrown kids almost, you want to say. Um, but yeah, led the FPS in sacks last year, 6'3", 266. He can rush from the outside or on the inside. I'm just kind of worried about his scheme fit. I've seen a few writers, especially on the Athletic, just say how he thrives a lot more and more of a 4-3, not necessarily a 3-4. But I heard Telesco and Brandon Staley's talk on the phone, and they made it sound like that they were they said some comment that made it sound like that they knew how they were going to use him. So that gives me some hope, and it gives us some much needed depth on the defensive line. So yeah, overall, I was a fan of the pick. It just took me some time to really do my research and figure out more about him. But yeah,
Yeah, a proven pass rusher. He led the NC2A last year in sacks at 13 and a half, I believe. So someone that has proven that he can get to the quarterback, and I think that again, it's just much needed depth with the edge position there. We saw it last season, with Joey Bosa going down and Khalil Mack and even Chris Rump, missing some time throughout the season. They were definitely thin at that position. Kyle Van Noy stepped in amicably and really kind of saved them at that position last year. Had it not been for them, it really could have gotten ugly um, on the edge. So this is some much needed depth, and I love his pass rushing win rate. He was second, I believe, at 19.1% in the all of NCAA, and I think the best case scenario, he can play full time on the edge and eventually, replace Khalil Mack or Joey Bosa, but I would probably say Khalil Mack in the next season or two. And yeah, I hope he is one of those second round picks that the Chargers have that really takes that next level. I don't
it's been
think
a
there really
while since
is.
we've had one of those, man.
Yeah, there has not been a slam dunk second round pick. Well, I think Asante Samuel Jr. would
Has
probably
the
fit in that
potential to be
category.
not there yet, but does have the potential to be. Yes.
Yeah, he's the closest one, I think, of anyone that really Telesco has drafted in the second round as his tenure as GM. So I really hope, it's a step up above where, you know, Uchenna Nwosu was a solid player, but just I really hope Tui can take that next step and really elevate this pass rush, not just this next year, but over the next 4 to 5 years.
100%, dude. Yeah, I'm excited for his presence there on that defensive line. Is going to get to learn from two greats and Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack. I could see him definitely stepping into a very big role someday.
Yes, sir. With that being said, what is your round two grade with the Chargers selecting Tui Pelotu?
As much as I'd love the pick, there were some other guys on the board that I probably would have preferred in that kind of scenario. There were just some higher graded edges that I liked a little bit more. Still love the fact that they went edge in the second round, much needed. I'll give Thule a B for now. Um, I think that's a pretty fair grade for somebody that I really still don't know a ton about. I mean, I've watched him play a few times now. Sometimes it's funny, you go back and then you remember like a college game that you've watched of the team, and then you're like, "Oh, I've watched this guy play before." That was how I was with Thule. So, don't know a ton about him yet, but I love the position, and love the depth that was needed there. So I'd go B.
Going B. I'm gonna stick with my first round grade, and I'm gonna give Tui a B plus, I'll give the Chargers a B plus for this pick. Like yeah, it's a much needed depth piece. I think he hit the nail on the head there. He's just gonna be a rotational player, in year one. So he's not coming in and we're not expecting him to really have a huge role, but definitely have a role for this defense. So if there's one thing that kind of concerns me about the pick, maybe that's keeping me from giving him an A minus or an A, that would be his missed tackle rate, which is something that I think to take note of. Whether or not you want to be concerned about it is up to you, but um, I think he definitely can improve there. It might hurt his production earlier on in his career, but nevertheless, I think that's something that he can fix and learn how to you um, get past. But yeah, I think it's a solid pick. I do think there was a couple other picks in round two that could have made things interesting, but overall, I'll give this pick a B plus.
Fair analysis.
Alrighty, man. Round three. Round three saw the Chargers taking another much needed depth piece. Some people are calling this the best pick of the draft for the Chargers across the board. Chargers select linebacker Diane Henley out of Washington State. Basically, I mean, look, the Chargers already replaced Drew Tranquil earlier this offseason by signing Eric Kendricks. Now they go out and get a much needed depth piece in Diane Henley. What was your initial reaction to seeing his name selected?
Future K9 replacement, Diane Henley. Um, Dude, when I saw his name pop up, I didn't know anything about this guy, and then I did some research, found out number one ranked linebacker in the whole class for through PFF. He was a
Yep.
receiver going into college, then transferred to safety, and then transferred into a linebacker. So he's a smaller guy, 6'1", 225, but he's incredibly fast, especially with his pass and playing those two positions, which require more speed. Great sideline to sideline, and just overall a pretty good athlete. So, I think that that's going to be another one of those dynamic chess pieces that Brandon Staley likes to have. The kind of guy that can do a lot of different stuff out on the field. Same thing with Thule. So I think I'm really excited for how the Chargers can use this guy, and I think that he can be a good piece going forward.
Yeah, I totally agree. My initial reaction, I had actually just left the draft right before this pick, and then we had sat down but at a sports bar, a few minutes away, and sat down just in time to see the Chargers select Diane Henley. And kind of like you, man, like I was, like who? I haven't really heard of this guy too much, but again, didn't take long for me to do some research and really find out that he is one of the top linebacker prospects in the entire class. And yeah, I think it's a solid pick. I think he does eventually replace Kenneth Murray. Chargers just announced they're not picking up the 5th-year option on him, so uh, that's huge news. Diane Henley is on his way in. Looks like Kenneth Murray is on his way out, and this will be a fun little position group to follow as the spring progresses and as we get into the summer, OTAs, training camp. Uh, yeah, maybe we're looking at a starter in Diane Henley come September.
Never know, dude. There's surprises every single year, but he is definitely one of those guys that I am looking forward to seeing in powder blue. So, with that, you want my grade on it? I'm guessing. I think I am going to give the Diane Henley pick an A minus. I think I'll go back to an A minus. Just really highly touted from a lot of credible sources. Again, I don't know too much, but a lot of people love the pick, so I'll go with the majority.
I agree, man. I'm gonna give it an A, just because, just based off value alone. And I think, look, most fans, and I would put us in that into that category. Some people really, you know, get into the draft and dive into it and know prospects, from round one all the way to round seven. But I think for more of the casual fans that just tune in and like to kind of hear what the team's thinking leading up to the draft, it's hard to really like you know it's hard to know what picks are going to be of good value when it comes to rounds three, four, five. And I think round one,
Yeah.
you can kind of, for the most part, you kind of know, what's a reach and what's a solid pick. But um, just based on value alone, I mean, I think that's all you can hope for when you get into these later rounds is just, hey, if we're picking at 75, if you're able to get a guy that was ranked at 62 or 64, like that's a win. And so I think this is a slam dunk pick just in that sense, just off value alone. I mean, for PFF to have him at number one in the entire class, and to be able to snag him in round three, I think is a huge win. Now, obviously, we have to see him play. It's way too early to tell. We're definitely in that honeymoon phase with these draft picks that we think everyone's going to be a stud, and it's just not the case. Every year we do the same cycle where we think our draft class is the best out of any team, and come training camp, there's only a couple guys that are really in the mix for some
Have
some actual roles.
Have you seen the Eagles draft class? I can tell you that their draft class is better than ours. I can say that much.
Right. Right. So, yeah, just
Willing to
just off
admit that.
value alone, I mean, I think this is a slam dunk pick. We'll see how it plays out, but it's hard to not love it when PFF and some other people have him as the number one ranked linebacker prospect. So I'm gonna go solid A.
Love it, man. Love it.
Alrighty, moving on to round four. Round four, the Chargers continue to surprise us a little bit. I think not many people saw this type of pick coming, but hey, uh, I like it. Chargers draft Darius Davis, wide receiver out of TCU. The Chargers officially are no longer Notre Dame U, and they are now on the TCU train. So, um, just one of three overall TCU picks the Chargers took. But what was your initial reaction when you saw Darius Davis's name across the banner?
Yeah, dude, I really love this player, but man, I think it was a massive reach. A lot of on his combine profile, he was a projected seventh rounder, perhaps a free agent afterwards. To take him in round four, yeah, I don't know. That gets dicey, but I will say I think that's really the only reach that I feel like every team has at least one reach a year, and I feel like that might be ours this year. But overall, I love the value that he brings as a player on the field. He ran a 4.340. He's super fast, insanely good return man. He had I can't remember. I believe he had 4 punt returns last year for TCU, punt slash kick returns for touchdowns. And he comes from that TCU background that's had a lot of great returners. Cavante Turpin, the dude that torched us last year in the preseason. He was from
Yeah.
TCU as a rookie last year, so that's gotta get you pretty excited. And obviously, key contributor on that national title run, well, to the game for TCU, along with Quentin Johnston and their quarterback, who we will get to later. But yeah, man, overall, I'm a fan of the player. I don't really love where we got him at though.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you. I was definitely surprised to see his name go in the fourth, and it definitely does. It feels like it does have the makeups of being a reach, at least initially. Um, I know that the Chargers definitely needed to address the issue at returner, kick returner and punt returner, since they lost DeAndre Carter to the Raiders earlier in the offseason. So I mean, that was definitely an issue that they needed to work out before going into the off season program. But yeah, I definitely think this just feels like it has the makeups of being a reach. It feels like Staley really wanted that return man, and they got a good one. They got probably one of the best, if not the best, in the entire draft when it comes to returning. But um, yeah, I was surprised to see them go receiver in round one and then come back and go receiver again in round four. I thought if they were, um, they might have gone, in the later rounds, round six, round seven. But to see them take another premium, or to use another premium pick, a top four round pick on another receiver was just surprising. So I was definitely surprised. I still, I don't hate it, but I don't love it. He's definitely probably the guy in this class that's gonna have to prove it to me the most.
Fair analysis. Like I mentioned, I love the kind of receiver they got. They got that dynamic fast playmaker that we've all been wanting them to get. We got that good return man. It's just the value aspect just wasn't quite there for me. And I'll start the grading off. I'll probably give this one a C. Really just not my favorite pick of the draft. Like I mentioned, like I said already, I like the player. Just fourth round for a guy that's graded seventh round. I mean, you see how that's kind of a waste of value. So
Yeah, no, value alone, I would have to agree. Not my favorite pick that they could have made in the fourth round. Um, but I do think this is a move that they're not necessarily concerned about 2023 with Darius Davis. They're probably thinking more long term. Keenan's getting older. Some other guys on the roster probably won't be here long term. So this is one that, yeah, they definitely needed the speed. It definitely addressed a couple issues. So that kind of helps the value a little bit. It helps the return game, but and it also brings that that speed that they were desperately lacking over the last couple of seasons. So it does have some good value in that sense, but overall, I still think it's a reach. I would have to agree with you. And I'm gonna go C plus for Darius Davis in round four.
yeah, I like it, man.
Alrighty, moving on to round five. Round five, the Chargers draft Jordan McFadden. I believe yeah, he is out of. Where's Jordan McFadden from? I don't have it pulled up in front of me.
Clemson.
Clemson, that's right. So they got their swing tackle in Jordan McFadden, some offensive line depth, interior offensive line depth, which was also much needed. This is definitely, I think, where you see the Chargers at this point in the draft just start to address some key areas of depth. I feel like they feel like they got their home run picks, in rounds 1 through 3. And this is kind of the point of the draft where they really started to turn and look towards, hey, how can we start to replenish some of these position groups, not only for this next year, but for future years down the line. I am a little concerned about this pick just because giving Tom Telesco's, kind of mid to later round draft history, it's I think it's easy to get excited over a prospect like Jordan McFadden, but I also just hope and pray that this does not end up being another Brennan Hymus, where 2 or 3 years go down the road and have barely seen any of him. I think when we selected Hymus a couple of years ago, most fans would probably say that they they had a bigger vision for him than what we've seen so far. So that's been kind of frustrating. And so I just those were kind of like some of my initial thoughts and reactions to this pick was, man, I hope this is one of those later round picks that can take that next step. And I hope we're not looking at another, you know, just lost pick 2 or 3 years down the road.
Well, dude, look at Jamari Salyer. I mean, let's hope it's one of those kind of picks.
True.
Um, but yeah, Jordan McFadden, I know really nothing about him. Sounded like he mostly played offensive tackle in college, but sounds like a move to guard is more than likely for him. He's pretty undersized for a tackle. He's only 6'2", 330. He was a 3-year starter, team captain at Clemson, which we all know is one of the college football blue bloods. So that always bodes well for kind of getting those kind of talent out of there. Um, I don't know a ton about him. He's got a pretty good frame for interior offensive line. It sounds like he's got some good footwork, but yeah, this wasn't much of a reach. He was more of a round 4, round 5 kind of guy. So, this pick to me is just kind of whatever. He's going to be somebody that I'll look forward to seeing in the future, but I'm not expecting a all pro out of this.
Yeah, and just doing a little bit more reading up on him right now. Uh, it's easier to get a little bit more excited about him. A lot of Charger fans seem to kind of like the pick. He has drawn some comparisons to Jamari Sawyer, like you said, from last year. So that is, I mean, that's always a good sign. I think the biggest knock on him, after just reading a little bit more about him, was definitely his size. I don't think most teams probably saw him playing tackle just because of his size. Um, but as we saw last year with Jamari Sawyer, it doesn't always come down to size alone. Great technique can go a long ways, and we saw just how far that can go with Jamari Sawyer stepping in last year and really playing really good left tackle uh, ball for the Chargers. So, yeah, I think best case scenario, you hope this is another Jamari Sawyer diamond in the rough that you get, in the later rounds. So, let's hear your official round 5 grade.
I think they addressed a position that I'm never upset with, being the offensive line. We just know, how banged up offensive linemen get. We know what kind of depth we have. So anytime you bring in a piece to such a critical position like that, I'm not going to be upset with it. I'd give this pick a B minus. Just honestly, just don't know too much about him. I'm pretty sure if we went back and looked at the tape from last year, I probably gave the Jamari Sawyer pick something along those lines too, just from lack of knowledge. So, I'm praying he can come out and be the kind of player that Sawyer is. But if not, then, it was a 5th round pick that's not wasting too much. So,
Yeah, I mean, look, after I'm trying not to fall victim to this, but after reading a little bit more about him these last couple minutes, I'm more impressed about the pick. It's not going to change my grade too much because, again, we have to see, you know, have to see the product on the field. And honestly, looking at the offensive line situation going into this year, it seems pretty set in stone unless there's an injury. It doesn't really feel like we'll see a lot of um, Jordan McFadden year one, anyways. So with that, I'm gonna go solid B for Jordan McFadden and the Chargers in round 5.
agreed.
All righty, moving on. Round 6. Round 6 reaction. Chargers in round 6 take center Scott Matlock. Don't let's see here. Where the hell is Scott Matlock from?
Boise State.
Boise State. Thank you.
And he is not a center, he is defensive line.
Oh no, never mind. You're right. Duh. Sorry, I
Look at
totally
this
fucked up.
idiot.
I was looking at
Oh,
grade.
brother, this guy stinks.
Scott, yeah, okay, Scott Matlock. He's the one that, yeah, he doubles as a red zone
Tight
runner.
end. Yeah.
Yeah, and dude, I saw after watching a few of his highlights on his tape, the dude's got some ball skills.
And you guys thought we didn't draft a tight end this year.
Exactly, exactly. So more interior defensive line depth for the Chargers, with Scott Matlock in round 6. Um, Doing a little bit of reading up on him, it doesn't seem like Matlock is someone who's going to have a massively high ceiling. But overall, could be some good depth down the road, maybe probably won't be a starter, but we saw what interior defensive line depth can do for a team. I mean, this last year, guys like Morgan Fox stepping up, even a young player last year in Tito Agbania, a rookie that we took, played some good ball down the stretch as well. So um, these are kind of these are some of my favorite picks that the Chargers make, where there's really not a lot of expectation on some of these later round guys, and they just end up being nice surprises, a year or two down the road. Um, so I'm not gonna knock Scott Matlock for not having the best you know pre-draft, or just being a top prospect, or having a lot of buzz around him. But hey, if he's someone that can, in a couple of years turn into a solid player, think Joe Gaziano, or even a Braden Fajoko. That those are guys that you just end up loving, because it's tremendous value when they're not supposed to really do anything, and end up being solid pieces.
Dude, there's really nothing better in this world than your team hitting on one of those late round picks. Um, and with Scott Matlock, who knows, man? Like you mentioned, like we don't really know what kind of player he can be, but who knows if he has to come in and step into this role after we're banged up or something, and we'll see what he has. But all I know is he's a big ass dude, 6'4",
Yeah.
308, just a big
Yeah.
hoss of a man in the middle of the field, looking to wreak havoc. So that's all
Yes.
that I got on him, though.
All right. Let's hear your round six grade for the Chargers.
I'll give Scott a B.
A
Uh,
B. Okay.
I feel like that's especially with how bad our run game is. It's such a low risk, potentially high or even mid reward. So why not? I'll give him a B. I don't think I would ever give a round 6 or 7 grade anything below like a B, just because one, I don't know shit about them, and two, they're gonna come in and try to prove themselves, and if they don't prove themselves, then how much can you really blame them? They were a 6th or 7th round pick, so
All right. I mean, yeah, I see where you're coming from.
yeah.
I would give this pick, less than a B. I'm gonna give this pick a C plus, and I'm gonna say that just because, just straight. I mean, we don't. It's just the straight unknown right now, and that's, look. I think grades can definitely change. Like, just because they're a C plus coming out of the draft, doesn't mean that a year from now they can't be an A plus, right? Or you know higher than what they were coming out of the draft. So, uh, yeah, I'm gonna say C plus for now. Expectations are not really high at all for Scott Matlock, but um, it seems to always be at least one rookie out of every class that is never really expected to get a lot of playing time that initial first season, and then whether it's due to injuries or other reasons, are thrusted into more action than they thought they might see. And um, sometimes it's a nice surprise. Jamari Sawyer last year, a very nice surprise for the Chargers, especially like you said, it solidifies everything. It solidifies, pretty much how you feel about the draft, because when you hit on someone in round 6 or 7, like there's no better feeling. You're like, man, value wise is just through the roof. I mean, you got an NFL starter in round 6 or round 7. That's always awesome. So, um, I think that's the best case scenario. Best case scenario for Scott Matlock, and worst case scenario, he never really gets a ton of playing time, and doesn't develop to a point where he can be a solid role player on this team.
That's why it's so low risk that I have a hard time not being a fan of him. But
Yeah, no, I, I
you
I
know,
like him, but just a lot of unknown for me. So,
yeah,
um,
agreed.
all right, man, let's bring this thing home. Let's
My
finish
favorite
it
pick
off.
of the draft, baby.
Oh baby, this is definitely. I knew this was going to be a very talked about pick. Lots of, I don't want to say controversy, but just lots of mixed feelings that I was seeing, on Twitter and on social media, from the Bolt fam when it came to the Chargers' seventh round selection. I absolutely love this pick. This is a guy that I've enjoyed following throughout this college football season. He was so much fun to watch in the playoffs, particularly, and just has I was telling someone like a month or so ago, or maybe even around the playoffs, college football playoffs. He kind of reminds me of a little bit of Philip Rivers in a way. He just plays with a little bit of like fire, and just seeing him play with emotion and uh, just get pumped for his teammates in the football playoffs. It really just gave me shades of Phil, and I love this pick just in the sense of it's solid. It's a solid backup quarterback that you have going forward. I don't think any of us are necessarily sold on Easton Stick long term. Um, but it's hard not to get excited about, a guy like Max Duggan. He's a winner. That's what, Brandon Staley said about him. And he's someone that's going to, he'll put a lot of fans at ease just by being on this roster and just knowing that if anything happens to Justin Herbert, um, I'm really excited to see what we have in Max Duggan.
Dude, it's always exciting to draft another quarterback, especially someone that led his team to the college football championship. Yeah, Max Duggan, man, fellow Midwest boy, just like us. Is from right outside Omaha, Nebraska, and Iowa. Uh, dude, the Ginger Ninja. I like this pick a lot, dude. I like what he can do on the ground. And now he's going to be reacquainted with both QJ and Darius Davis. So,
Yes, sir. TCUU.
yeah, the Los Angeles Horned Frogs, baby, strike again. So
That's
I am
right.
excited though. I hope that he gets. I hope he gets an opportunity. Maybe not necessarily. I hope that he gets some sort of opportunity. I'm thinking like a week 18, like we're resting our starters because they're already clinched like the first seed type of opportunity. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm excited to see what he's gonna do. I think that he's gonna draw. I think he's gonna draw a lot of fans to LA, honestly. So
I'm already instantly excited for the preseason. Like I'm actually going to watch probably every preseason game because I'm legitimately like excited to see Max. Is it Dugan or Duggan?
I think it's Duggan. I don't know. I've heard both.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Dugan. You can go Duggan.
Nah, go
Um,
Duggan, please. I don't like Dugan.
but I'm generally like genuinely excited to see him play and to see what he looks like in this offense with, again, like you said, being reunited with some of his college teammates on the offensive side. So yeah, man, I'm excited about this pick. Initial reaction was just I wasn't I think this was probably maybe Matlock and Dugan were the only picks I didn't really watch uh live time either on the TV or at the draft. So I got those notifications just on my phone, and the second I saw that we drafted Max Duggan, I was like, "Fuck yes, baby, let's go."
I agree, dude. It's a sick pick. It's just he was a big time, like a lot of fans in college football for him, and now he's a Charger. So I think for my grade, I'm gonna give him a B plus. I think quarterback is a position, especially now that Chase Daniel's not back. It's a position that we really need to address. So I'm happy with it.
It's so funny seeing some of these grades handed out by Chargers media and Charger fans. I'm seeing like Fs and Ds and like C minuses. Um, and I get it, man. I get the argument of, there's other needs. Do we really need to back up when we could have got, that's another roster spot that you could have addressed in another area of need when it comes to depth. But look, we saw last year just how important uh having a good competent backup can be, not the Chargers, but I'm talking about the San Francisco 49ers.
I
That's
mean, Chargers too in that San Fran game, dude. That was
well, yeah,
brutal.
sure. And we saw, yeah, I guess, there were a couple moments throughout the season where we did see that for a couple of snaps, but it's just some sort of like peace of mind knowing that, hey, even if something happens to our franchise guy, that doesn't necessarily have to be the end all be all. Like, I think before this pick, if Herbert were to go down, like God forbid he were to get hurt and be out for the remainder of the year, um, again, you don't feel great because you lose a superstar guy, but you're also replacing him with a known winner, who's played at the highest level of college football and plays with a certain swagger and a certain passion that um, I think will translate really nice to the NFL. And my hope for him, man, is that we do get to see him um, in some capacity. I would never not want Justin out there, but I instantly also thought maybe there's some packages that Kellen Moore can whip up for for
That'd be
for
sick.
Max, and maybe some RPO stuff, some red zone stuff, like anything you can do to make it a little more difficult on the defense and keep them guessing. So I would love to see that. I don't know if it'll happen. I don't know how realistic that is, year one, but I just hope that we see you know a couple opportunities coming his way at some point.
Feels like he's been an athlete that's always been slept on.
Yeah,
So
and
I'd love to
it's
see him. I'd love
weird
to see
that
him get his opportunity.
right, and like I know we're not scouts, by any means, but it's always baffling to me when a guy like Max falls. He's a proven winner. He's a Heisman finalist. Some even argue he probably should have won the Heisman. And it'll always baffle me, like the fact that all the buzz. I mean, there's so much buzz over guys like Will Levis coming into this draft, but no love for Max. And it just, again, I'm not a scout. I know there's more that goes into it than just your accolades. If you went if you went off accolades alone, that probably wouldn't be the best recipe. So I understand that, but yeah, it's just always baffling to see a guy like, man, Heisman finalist, proven winner, took his team to the national championship, and you know it takes a franchise like the Chargers, who already have their guy, for him to get drafted all the way in the seventh round. So, um, but yeah, man, I love this pick. Overall grade, I'm gonna have to be somewhat realistic here, but just based on value alone, I'm gonna go B minus.
I like it, man.
Did you give a grade already?
Yeah, I gave it a. Wait, did I? Oh, I don't know. I gave it a B. I thought I said that already, but maybe not.
Okay.
But yeah, I give this pick a B. I'm just excited to see. It's always excited when your team picks up another quarterback. You just want to, especially in the especially going with a rookie who led his team to the national championship. I'm excited. I'm excited for the preseason now. So
Dude, yeah, it gives us even more to be excited about. Um, so yeah, man. Overall, what's your overall grade on the entire 2023 draft class as a whole? You can bring value into it. You can just bring there's certain picks that you just thought were home runs that kind of elevated the entire class. Whatever it may be, what's your overall grade for the 2023 class?
yeah, I'm still gonna stick with my initial grade that I said right after the draft, and that's a B plus. I just think that Telesco did a very good job of picking up talent in areas that definitely are needed, especially just even thinking about depth pieces. Um, for defense or offensive line, or now we're looking at receiver and quarterback. So I really like what he did, especially position wise. There definitely probably would have been a few other prospects at some certain picks in those positions I would have liked a little bit more. But overall, I liked what he did. B plus for me.
Nice. Yeah, I do like the class. I think there's a couple picks that I'm really excited about and a few that I'm, you know, kind of hit or miss on, but overall, I'm gonna go a solid B. Um, I want to give them more of a B plus, but I think there was a few picks, kind of scattered throughout the class that uh, just seemed a little interesting. But nevertheless, I think they hit on more than they didn't, or than they missed on, I should say. That's my initial kind of reaction and feeling coming out of draft weekend. Is I do feel good about the majority of this class, and look, you're never going to go 7 for 7. So that's
Who says
like
no? Who
insanely
says
hard to
no?
do.
Who says no?
I mean, has anyone ever done that? Like,
Probably not.
I
No.
can't think of anyone, but
But let's just say this could be the first one ever.
it could be.
It's not going to
Um,
be, but it could be.
But I do think majority wise, I think they hit on more than they missed on, and I do think they got some good value in the later rounds. So yeah, overall, I'm gonna give it a B, and might feel differently about it 6 months from now, a year from now, but yeah, I feel pretty good about it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing, especially Quentin Johnston. Looking forward to seeing just what we can do with him in our new offense. So a lot to look forward to in this draft class, though, my man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And with that, that will put a wrap on our draft reaction episode. So, man, the draft has come and gone. I mean, football season is going to ramp up here pretty quick. With OTAs right around the corner, mini camp, and then before they head off into the summer and come back for camp. So, before we know it, man, we'll have a lot more content to talk about and to discuss. So that's exciting. And anything else you want to add in here real quick before we get out of here?
Always remember, if there's a pick you don't like, just give it some time.
That's true. That's
I've
true.
always told myself that after the Justin Herbert fiasco. So
Yes.
just give it some time,
And
see what they look like on the field, and then you can either say I told you so or shut up. So
exactly. And hey, sometimes it even takes longer, guy like Trey Pipkins, many guys were ready to, cast him out to sea after his second and, third season. And now he is the starting right tackle for this team moving forward. So crazy how that stuff works. You just never know. And I totally agree, man. You got to give it time and see where it goes.
yes, sir.
All right, man. Well, let's go ahead and get out of here. Thank you, everyone, for listening to another episode of Chargers Powder Hour. This was the draft reaction episode. Make sure to follow us on our social medias at Powder Hour Pod LA for all the latest news and updates about the podcast and about the Bolts. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel if you're watching this on YouTube. But with that, bolt up, and we'll see you next time.